Hey everybody, I'm Justin Bogart of Bright Path Notes, and you are watching the Real Estate Note Investing Be the Bank broadcast. This is December 8th, 2021. We're going to be discussing kind of the year as what's been going on. There's a few little updates we have as to the mortgage industry. Then we found a few little stories that we want to discuss that are going on right now, and we're going to have some case studies for you. This is going to be fun. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back. Justin Bogart again. My co-host Richard's having some technical difficulties today, so hopefully he'll hop on and join us in just a few minutes. If you want to say hi or if you have any comments or feedback or questions during today's broadcast, don't forget to go to the comment section. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Facebook, there's a comment section there. Go ahead and post your comments. We'll see them. We can answer them live during the broadcast, or we'll save them towards the end when we do our little Q&A at the end. So without further ado, we'll kind of jump into today's broadcast. I got some new buttons here with my program that I use, so I got to kind of get used to the screen here. Disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a tax consultant, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a real estate note investor. I just share my experiences as to what I've been through and kind of what I know, and I bring other people on that are experts in the note space as well to talk about their experiences and their journey as well. So this broadcast would not be possible if it wasn't for some sponsorship. So we have my company, Bright Path Notes. We've got the deal flow to make our cash flow is our slogan. And you can reach me at justin@brightpathnotes.com if you're looking for inventory for notes. We buy loans, we sell loans, and we help people create loans as well. Michelle Winberry says, hi. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing? Real Estate Education is our other sponsorship, and that is our local we call them our RIA, local RIA. It's called CIREA, CIREIA. Stands for Central Indiana Real Estate Investor Association. You can reach the executive director there if you'd like to tie into our little group here in Indianapolis. We have a lot of outside investors that like to invest in Indianapolis. And so, it's a great group to be a part of. We have I think we have 600 or 700 members right now. And we have a bunch of active full-time real estate investors in the group. A lot of people like to give back. If you're looking at, rentals in Indianapolis, looking at Airbnb, if you're looking at notes, if you're looking at fix and flip, you're looking at wholesaling properties, all that stuff, we got a great group of people that are part of our organization. We also have a note investing training course that's for you novice and semi-novice investors out there that want to get interested or get into note investing. And if you email info@brightpathnotes.com, we can get you more information on how you can sign up. It's called Constant Cash Flow. All right, we got a few highs, a few first timers. Got to hello, Michael. I know you've been on before. Thanks for hopping on again. And Lisa, first time viewer. Well, thanks, Lisa, for hopping on. We sure do appreciate it. Keep the comments coming. And Goodwin, hey, Goodwin, all the way from LA. Man, that's a different time zone out there. That's the same time zone as Richard. Hopefully he'll hop on in a few minutes and give a shout out there too. So our last sponsorship is a self-directed IRA company called New View Trust. They are out of, I want to say somewhere in Florida. I can't remember exactly where, but the phone number is up there, 407-708-1853. If you email newaccounts@newviewira.com and you mention this broadcast, they're going to waive your setup fee. How about that? Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so this next slide is for our people that are in our local RIA here in Indianapolis. And you can follow the RIA on all the traditional channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. They got a ton of free videos on YouTube. Don't forget, there are also PHP credits that are a part of this broadcast as well. If you are a member of CIREA, this is important to you. Take out your smartphone, take out your camera, hover it over the QR code there, and then it'll pop up a little URL. And it will get you to a page that you put in your first name, your last name, and I think your email address, and you'll be good to go. So let's skip through that. So our next first slide is not coming through on my screen like it's supposed to. It's the Two Wealth Show broadcast. It's our podcast that me and my friend Elizabeth Sickles, aka Super E, do, and we're on all the podcast directories. We also record this on YouTube as well, and we will replay that on my YouTube channel. So Bright Path Notes YouTube, which some of you are on right now. You can also see that there's a podcast section of it where we do the Two Wealth Show. There's a broadcast section where we do all these broadcasts on a monthly basis that you can go check out and see. We got Mr. Kevin out in New York. Hey, Kevin. All right. So thanks for all the shout outs, everyone. Keep the questions and comments coming. Today is December 8th, and we're going to go over the note basics for the note industry. For those of you that have no idea what the heck note investing is, we're going to explain that kind of lightly here in just a second. We have the mortgage industry update, which is we'll just give you some feedback as to what's going on in the industry. I got some stories, some headline stories that came about the last 30 days that we can just talk about. And I'll have a case study at the end to kind of show you one of the deals that I'm working on right now. So let me advance to the next slide here. So my PowerPoint is not working like the way that it should. So forgive me for some technical difficulties. And I think Richard is blowing me up here. He's trying to get in to our account here. Let me just pause a second and get Richard going. Gotta love these technical difficulties. All right. He needs a code to get in. Now he's got the code. Hopefully we'll see Richard in just a second. So anyways, let's see if I can get this PowerPoint to work properly. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm not going to get to work the way I want it to right now. So let me get into this. So you see you have a house there in the center with a chain and lock on it. You have a buyer and a seller. The seller has a deed. The buyer is going to get the deed at the closing, and they're going to go get their money from a bank. The bank's going to give them a note and mortgage against the house. That's how the bank secures their debt. And then that note and mortgage is going to be bought by this investor over here with the briefcase. That could be an LLC, that could be an LLP, that could be a trust account, it can be a retirement account, it can be cash, it can be a partnership with a couple different people. However you want to buy it, you can buy that that stuff there. Oh, looks like my buddy Richard just hopped on. So let me see if I can get him in the mix here. Hey, Richard.
How are you, sir?
Good. Did you have a power outage? Is that what happened?
We are still on the phone. We're not. And let me see if I can get me off of the phone. And
you're fine. We're going to keep moving here, Richard, while you get things set up there in the background.
Okay, good.
So we are going to be discussing now kind of what's been going on the past year. One of the things that we do in our broadcast is we take a little bit of time in this segment to talk about the mortgage industry as it relates to note investing. And so there's a company called Black Knight Financial Data. They provide a lot of good information. They come out with this very long report of exactly what's going on, like with payments coming in, with possibly rents, with forbearances, with delinquencies and all that stuff. So we kind of look at that data. I actually looked at it today because it's the most updated information. We kind of digest it and look at it and spit out some information that's kind of what we think is important to look. You can all look at the highlights. You go to Black Knight Financial Data. I don't know the websites. Black Knight Financial Data, if you look that up on Google, you'll find them. They have a data report section. You go to that data report, you can download the report and you can read the entire thing for yourself. It's very informative, but it's too much information to put on this broadcast today. So Richard, what I thought was important to note is the overview stats. And you notice our delinquency rate has gone down since last month, which is a very common trend throughout the entire 2021. Mm-hmm. Foreclosure starts have gone up a little bit more. So it looks like, and this is small on my screen, I just kind of squint here. It looks like it went up probably a couple hundred foreclosures than what it was the previous month. Mm-hmm. So that's a good sign that things are opening up and things are continuing to foreclose. And we got active foreclosures that says 3,000 up. So I can't read the bottom of that slide right there, but generally those numbers, the last two numbers in green going up, that's a better sign for right now. Typically, we wouldn't want to see foreclosure starts and active foreclosures going up, but because they're so low, we definitely want to see that come up. Delinquency rates are down, so that's good. All right, Richard.
Yep.
here's our favorite graph here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the history since 2001, and we show the solid blue line going up, going down, spiking up during COVID, and then jumping way back down. So we are at the levels that we were before COVID came to the United States.
Right.
So the pie chart is one of my favorite charts just because I'm visual and it's just easy to read, to be honest with you. So out of the data set right now is 7.7 million forbearances, and they're saying this is COVID-related forbearances. The big green section shows 52% of all forbearances have came out. Either they removed and expired because they got reperforming. That's a very, very good number. The gray data set down at the bottom is paid off. So we've talked about this over and over again. We talked about how the refis have helped that number dramatically. People's real estate is appreciating a lot more. If they can't afford to make their payment, they end up selling their house. They end up making more money, and they move on to something else. So those two numbers combined, Richard, are well over 75%.
Mm-hmm.
So we've come a long ways. I don't know Richard, what was it at the beginning of the year? Do you remember what the reperforming and then the paid off rate was?
I don't. It was well below that. I've kind of enjoyed watching the green section get greater and greater. And when you're done here, I've got 2 cents to add
Sure.
to all this, and based on something I read earlier today, which I thought was quite interesting. But go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Jump on in.
Well, what I was going to say is that I guess I didn't realize, being in the Bay Area, we're seeing a huge inflation there's Michelle. She says hi. Hi, Michelle. Hope you and Brian are doing well. Anyway, we've seen a huge inflation in the market based on lack of supply, but also tech money. And it's not just tech money from increased salaries, but it's the stock market is doing so well. A lot of people are pulling their money out of the stocks and paying off their houses. And what I didn't realize is that's actually a countrywide phenomena. If you look at a lot of the stats, we have a perfect storm, and we've had a growing perfect storm all year long, where you've got rates that are really low. So it's easy for people to pay down their mortgages and refi and or completely pay them off. You've got increased wealth due to stock market wealth. And in a lot of cases, even in smaller cities, say take Des Moines, Iowa, or maybe where you are around Indianapolis or something like that, where these tech centers are growing up, back offices, you got people making good money. And all of a sudden, they're able to pay off. And that's why we're seeing an accelerated refi rate and basically cash in and no mortgage rate.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting phenomenon. I think you would agree when I say this. A lot of our mentors and people that are much more seasoned than we are in the business, when we listen to them talk, they all mention about how unique this time is in the real estate cycle, especially the note investing cycle, that they've not seen anything like this before. And it just makes me appreciate this business even more, because it's you never see typically don't see the same thing over and over again. Like if our mentor is telling us that they've never seen a cycle like this before, and they've been doing this for 40 plus years, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and actually, I'm kind of bummed by it, because I got a whole bunch of partials, and I had 3 of them pay off in the last month. And on a partial, you don't make much up front. You're really in it for the tail, and those tails are getting paid off. So darn.
Right. Well, I guess you're just gonna have to park that money somewhere else, Richard. You can find
I guess
another
I
note.
am. I'm going to have to do that.
That's not a bad thing. Not a bad
Nope.
thing. All right, Richard. So I was looking at DS News today, and I came across an article that it shows up here. It was about 22 days ago when it actually came out, but it talked about home auctions growing in popularity. So I've heard this term from other real estate agents that have been talking about their agency. They're going after and buying homes from their potential clients, as opposed to listing them, just buying them outright. And then I've also heard like Zillow and other places that are wanting to buy people's homes instead of listing them. And then I've heard about these auction sites as well. And so this article, I read it, I just skimmed it briefly, but I got some of the highlights out of it I thought were pretty interesting. So basically they took a poll of whoever was the responsible party in this article here. And they were looking at a poll based on who is buying at these auctions and what their generation is. And what's interesting to note is that this poll, it says 21% of millennials have purchased a home at an auction. 13% of Generation Z have purchased a home at an auction. 6% Generation Y, and then 4% of baby boomers have purchased a home at an auction. So if you don't know the generations, the baby boomers are people that were born in, let's just call it around the 50s and 60s.
Me.
Yeah, we won't date you, Richard.
Me.
Generation Y would be a step above that. Generation Z would be a step above that. There's a Generation X somewhere in there. Then millennials are one of the newer generations. So those will be people that are younger, probably in their 20s and maybe right at the stage of 30s. We can get specific about that, but that's how you see. You notice people, old schoolers like Richard here, probably wouldn't be buying a home at an auction. And the reason for that, they're uncomfortable with it, as you can probably imagine. They can't walk to the property. They probably can't get a certain inspection done on it either. It's probably whoever inspected it that's listing it on the auction, I'm sure, is what you have to take with it. But the millennials are obviously more used to having automation. You're comfortable with that type of environment, like an auction type site, even for a house. And so I thought that was pretty interesting to note, that I hadn't been keeping up with all this, and I just want to throw that stat out there. So Richard, what do you think about that?
I think 21% number is amazing. I mean, that's just huge when you think of it. When you think of them, because there's supposed to be as many millennials as there are boomers.
Okay.
So that means that there are millions of homes that are being purchased on auction, and that's not. I realize that's on an auction website. It's not people necessarily going down to the steps, but either way, that's an amazing number. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So I had to throw that stat out there. So anyway, this is an article from DS News.
Right.
You guys want to read the entire article? Okay, Richard, this article is from Realtor.com, I believe. And it says high housing costs are one reason behind the Great Resignation. Here's where workers want to move. So this, I don't think I put the whole article in here, but I just took a snippet of the first part. And basically, I've heard this term used a few times, but not a lot. And so it kind of caught my attention in the heading of this, the Great Resignation. And so, Richard, I've been hearing from, maybe not necessarily some news articles, but maybe some reliable sources and maybe some people that I know that are just in the business industry. And they talk about the workforce being down. There's a lot of different reasons why the workforce is being down, particularly the trades jobs and the skilled labor. And so what I've heard is that it has a lot to do with the real estate that they have that they've appreciated, maybe sold or pulled equity out of. And so they don't have an urgency to work right away because they have a lump sum of money in front of them. Some have invested in cryptocurrency and done really well. They have a lump sum of money and they don't have to work right away. Mm-hmm. Some have tech jobs, like you mentioned before, Richard, which I'm glad that you brought that up. And they're able to, maybe they live at the city, in those cities where they have a lot of those tech jobs. Like you know more than I do, Richard, but let's say the San Fran area, maybe the Seattle area, stuff where the big tech companies are at. And maybe they move to another location and they can work remotely. And they could downsize and they have a significant amount of money and they don't have to work as often, or maybe they just don't want to work for a period of time. And so I thought this article was interesting, and it seems like people are moving to more affordable areas. And it also notes in this article that I think it says, I want to say, Richard, basically 1/3. So 1 out of every 3 employees right now are saying that they would take a pay cut to be able to live in a more affordable city and be able to work there.
Right.
Meaning keep their job, work remotely, and be in a more affordable city.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of instances, like your house outside of Indianapolis, compared to the house that I'm in, which is built in 1910 outside of the Bay Area, and is almost a $2 million house and is just sort of a so-so house here, you can buy that for $200,000 outside of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And I could afford quite a pay cut and make that a housing adjustment. But one thing I'd like to mention too is that I may have mentioned to you, I upgraded my operating system, my computer last week. And who knows why? It's supposed to be seamless, but it caused me great consternation because it blew out all sorts of apps and things like that. So I spent a good amount of time with tech support people all around, for the different applications. And in each time I asked them, I said, "So where are you located?" And I found it very interesting. "Oh, I'm in Miles, Ohio. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm in, little towns that I'd never even heard of. They're all remote. There's no way they could even begin to go to some tech center. But I'm really hoping that we see more of that because that's going to regenerate a lot of these small towns."
That's interesting. And I'm glad that you asked those questions. And I love that, Richard, about you. You don't mind asking those questions. You just get in there and just ask questions.
Driving my wife crazy, but
let's look at a couple of responses that we got. So Michael said, FYI, some people are selling through an auction as opposed to a realtor. Yes, that is true. I have seen that, and I know some people that would prefer that. Let's see. Goodwin has a good question here. Let's see. He says, I was at McDonald's in Florida, even though he's in Los Angeles. He mentioned that already on the broadcast this past week, where they couldn't open the dining room their first few hours because they didn't have enough employees to handle the front counter at the food production. You know what, Goodwin, this is going to get me on a rant. Richard, I'm getting some feedback on your end. I'm not sure if I dialed down your speaker. But I've noticed that too. So I've been doing a lot of camping a lot. I'm almost a full-time camper right now. And so what I've been noticing is that when we travel to different areas and we want to get some fast food, I've run into the same thing to where a lot of these dining rooms aren't even open. You have to go through the drive-through to get service, if you can get service at all because of that. So I've been seeing that as well. Goodwin also mentioned here, let's see. Yeah, I agree, Rick. Agree. All right, Michelle has a question here. My daughter works from home for a tech center out of another state. Okay, so there's another one. So this must be a more common thing than we realize because obviously we're not in that space, so we just don't see it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Lisa says the same thing happened at Dunkin' Donuts in Indy. Yeah, nothing irks you more than you go into your favorite place. You just want to stop in and get something, maybe walk inside, and you can't because everything is shut down. I've noticed that we're totally getting off subject here, which I love. I noticed that sometimes there's a Wendy's close to where we live, and it will shut down on a certain day of the week, like Chick-fil-A shuts down on Sunday. And I thought that was interesting. I was upset, obviously, when I was there because somebody was wanting Wendy's, so that didn't happen.
Well, so I'll make it a little bit worse here.
Okay.
My next door neighbor owns a restaurant here north of San Francisco, and his head chef, a fellow who's been a chef for him for 25 years, is quitting as of the end of the year. And we hear about this, but you don't really see it firsthand. During COVID, he spent $10,000, took a computer coding course, and picked up a $90,000 a year job, becoming a coder. And he doesn't have to work all these terrible restaurant hours. And he's getting a little bit older. He's in his early 50s. So he's saying, why put up with this? And I think we're starting to see a lot more of that.
Yeah. So how does this all relate to the note business, Richard?
Well, it all relates in the way that we mentioned, which is that we're seeing a lot of payoffs. We're seeing a lot of people who don't need private notes. And also we're seeing a lot of money in the market. And where does that money go? It goes to a lot of different investment funds. Those investment funds are, quite frankly, scooping up a lot of the mortgages, especially a lot of the performing mortgages that might trickle down to the onesie twosie guy. They're buying them up 100 at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, this next story is more of a an article, if you will. It's from CoreLogic. And so I found this an interesting thing to note here. It says home prices nationwide, including distressed sales, increased year over year by 18%. So October 20 to October 21, it's saying there's a year over year increase nationally of 18%, which is a pretty good appreciation rate, Richard.
It's amazing, just amazing.
Yeah. So the projection now, based on CoreLogic, is saying they're forecasting a 2.5%, or what we probably fare as pretty typical of real estate year over year change, 3%, close to 3%. So it would seem that things are projecting to go back to the way they kind of are. Maybe some years a little higher, some years are more flat. All right, Richard. So because my PowerPoints aren't working in this application like they should, I usually have my bullets come across one at a time. So you're kind of going to see everything here on my slide, which is not fun for me because I like to surprise people.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of technical. What the crowd doesn't know was that my power went out about a minute before we were supposed to start here. So we had a scramble, and that's why you're hearing a little bit. So on that note, are you still getting any feedback from my mic?
I'm not, no. I just want to point out that I am drinking out of a Purdue water cup today because Purdue men's basketball is #1 in the country.
Oh, okay.
Just want to point that out.
Right.
Anyways,
so
Richard, buying a non-performer as a partial? Who would do that?
Tell us, dude.
This guy. This guy would do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Smart.
So I have an investor or lender that approached me and said, look, I got this note here. It's starting to go delinquent. I think it was a few months behind. And it was one of these loans in Michigan to where the servicer wasn't going to be servicing their loan anymore. They had to transfer the service. So they kind of looked at it as, this is annoying. I don't want to deal with this non-performer. I don't know what to do. Let me call up Justin and see what to do. So they didn't want the non-performer. I said, hey, can I talk to the borrower? Do I have your permission to represent you on the phone call and speak to them and try to find out what the story is? And they were okay with that. So we agreed with that. I talked with the borrowers, kind of got the lay of the land from them. They were saying how they basically don't live at the property. So it's more like a rental situation. And it's one of those family deals, Richard, to where they bought the house and then they wanted their kids to live there. And so their kids are supposed to be paying them the mortgage payment, and then they're advancing the mortgage payment to the said lender. The lender can get paid. Well, obviously something wasn't happening there, and then the payments weren't getting made. So after talking with them, I actually found out who the people occupying the property were and got their name and number and stuff, and had some conversations with them, which I'll get into in a minute. So then I went back to the lender and I said, look, I'm not going to buy the whole thing from you because I feel like there's going to be more risk involved for me. I don't want to have the whole ownership right now. But what I will do is I'll buy a part of it. So I offered them kind of like what we do for a partial, Richard, where if it was a performing partial, I'll be buying so many payment streams, so many months of the payment stream, and then they would have a different part of the payment stream as well.
So Justin, I said, I'm going to interrupt you right there because Lisa just brought up a good comment. She says, I'm a new member. A non-performer and a partial are Greek words to me. So maybe if you could step back just a little bit before you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is why it's good to have somebody fielding some of these comments when I'm hot in the moment. That's right. So a performing loan, Lisa, is a loan that is paying every month, and they're paying before the next due date. So if if the payment is due on the first of the month and they pay it before the next first of the month, we consider that performing loan because they're paying every month, even though they might be late. A non-performing loan in our industry is when the loan hasn't paid for 3 months in a row, and then it becomes a non-performing status, meaning we don't see them paying anymore. So we're going to put it in a special category called non-performing. So that's what we mean by non-performing. Someone's not paying their mortgage, they're going delinquent.
And what is a partial per se?
A partial is where if we had 10 years left on a loan, and let's say Richard has a loan that has 120 months left on it, it's 10 years. And I say, Richard, I want to buy a partial of that loan. I'm not going to buy a partial of the payment per month. Like if it's a $500 payment, I'm not gonna buy a part of that. I'm gonna buy the whole payment. It's just I'm gonna say, Richard, I want to buy the next 60 payments from you. So I'm as a loan as a whole, I'm gonna buy a part of that loan, and then Rich is gonna own the other part of it. So Richard mentioned earlier in the broadcast about partials how he had a bunch of tails, meaning Richard had the back 60 payments and somebody else had the front 60 payments. In this case, I'm asking Richard, I want to buy the front 60 payments from you, and then you're going to keep the back 60 payments. And so that's what we call a partial.
Now, why would I want to sell you a partial?
Well, because you can recoup some money, right? Mm-hmm. You can recoup some money up front, and then you can also get cash flow in the future. So if you wanted to recapitalize on some of your investments, it's a great way to do it. If those of you that have a rental portfolio, you probably go to a bank to recapitalize the equity in your rental, so you can go out and buy another rental. That's how people do that in the note business as well.
Would that increase my yield on those remaining payments?
It depends. It depends on what you sold it for. It depends on what they bought it for. That's a good question, though. But those things can be adjusted based on who needs help. A novice person is going to need more help, so they're not going to make as sweet as a return as a note professional. So great question, and thank you. And please ask those questions when you guys don't understand, because I just assume people know things, and I shouldn't do that, because you know what assume means, right?
Right. I'm going to let you finish your thought here, and then then we'll address one other question that
sure.
Lisa's got. But go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, so buying a non-performer as a partial sounds like a crazy idea, but this is what I did. This is kind of what I do. I come up with these crazy ideas. So I wanted to lower my risk because I felt like if I bought the entire loan from the investor, they were going to lose money. And I didn't want them to lose money, the lender, because they're actually they're a friend of mine in the note industry. So I wanted to make sure.
You sold them a bad deal?
So I didn't sell them a bad deal. I sold them a great deal that didn't work out very well. So I said, hey, look, let's make sure that we all come out smelling like a rose here. So I said, I'm going to buy a part of it. So I'm going to give you some money today. I'm going to do all the workout stuff with the borrower and, anything to do with the non-performing loan. And then you're going to benefit at the end and make money at the end. But you just got to wait for me to do my work. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to lower my risk instead of buying the whole thing. So I just wanted to buy a part of it. So I had less money in the deal as opposed to buying the entire thing. You're going to turn down your volume a little bit, Richard. I'm getting some feedback here. So the lender recoups some money today is what I'm getting at. All right. So I'm going to finish this thought, and then we can go back to that question that I think Michael was asking. So I talked with the borrower again. I found out that they can't really afford to make the payments this is after I bought this. So I got my loan servicer involved, and we kind of sent out some letters and got everything official. And they basically say, we can't afford to pay it. Our kids are in there. They're not paying us rent. We told them that they're going to have to pay, or that the bank's going to take the property away. And they just want to wipe their hands of it, and they want to give the property back to the lender. So now I'm sitting in the position.
Their kids are doing that to them?
The kids are doing that to them. So there's a daughter that's married, and they have one or two kids that lives there, and the husband has his parents living there as well in the house. So to the previous borrower's knowledge, all those adults are also have income coming in. So it's not like they couldn't afford to make the payment. I think they're just trying to pull one over on mom and dad or in-law.
I'm not going to even go there. So keep going.
This is why you got to dig into the story a little bit. This is why you want to talk with the borrowers. You want to really understand what's going on, because you can see this is something that I can work with. This is something that I can deal with here. So talking with them, they can't afford to make the payments. They want to give the property back. And now I can go to the occupants now once I go, because I haven't gone through that process yet of actually getting the contract canceled or getting the property deeded back to me. I'm in the middle of that process right now. So the next options are to go to the occupants there and be like, look, what's the situation here? It's pay, stay, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to pay, let's write a new note and show me something to where, we can get some down payment and then put them in a payment plan, or put them in a new note and just kind of cash flow it forward. If they're going to be difficult, then obviously the last resort would be to just go through an eviction process.
Show me the money.
Show me the money.
That's right.
Right. So Richard, that is why I had a non-performer. I bought it as a partial. Let's go to some questions.
Okay. So Michael says, under a partial note, who gets the property in the event of a loan default?
Great question, Michael. I love these questions. So the example of Richard and I being in a partial together. So I'm going to buy a partial from Richard, and Richard's going to be the primary lender, let's just say, but I'm buying a part of the entitlement at the beginning. So if the loan paid off, let's say it's a performing partial, then I'm entitled to what our agreement says when we sign the paper. Like, let's say the note is, Richard, let's just say it's a $50,000 unpaid balance, and I bought $25,000 of the principal balance. Then equally, we both get $25,000 if it paid off the next day, and that's what we would make, right?
You would get your unpaid balance. So
Yes.
whatever's remaining
Yeah.
on your investment.
Yeah, because the borrower is paying off the debt with whatever the unpaid balance is. So at the time the borrower is paying off this imaginary debt, let's say it's $45,000. That's what they're paying off, the $45,000. If there's interest in the future, that's not what we get.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we're entitled, and the loan servicer is the one that controls this, which is why you have to use a loan servicer, or else you're not gonna make this work right, because they know that Justin's entitled to this much and Richard's entitled to this much, and it's all controlled within the documentation. Wherever the loan pays off in the amortization schedule is where they draw the line, and they can figure out the math of what happens.
Right.
So the property will go to really, so in the event of a payoff, the property would go to the person paying off the debt, right? In the event of a default, which is the question that you're asking, is it really depends. So by the rule of the partial, the first investor, which is me in our hypothetical, is going to be deeded the property. Richard is still in the deal. It's just not on public record that it's known that Richard is in the deal. The servicer controls the fact that Richard still has an interest in this debt or this property now, because they're holding special documentation that is signed by Richard and I at the beginning of this partial deal, to where they're going to control how Richard's interest is on the property. Now, more than likely, at the time of a collection of the deed, if it comes back to us, it's probably going to be titled in a manner that says, Justin Bogard gets 32% interest in this property, and Richard Thornton gets whatever the remainder is, right? I didn't do the math very wisely to do that on the fly.
So in all my agreements, we may be way over some people's heads here, and I'm sorry if that's the case, but in all my agreements for partials, they read that my partial buyer cannot put the property in default without my permission, and that I have first right of refusal to basically pay them off, which in all instances I would do. If they've got a $20,000 balance, I would just cut them a check for $20,000, and then they're totally out of the deal. Makes it a whole lot easier, a lot simpler. They're happy, they're paid off. They don't have to put up with any of the problems.
Right.
So let's see. Kevin says, since you're the note holder, would you create a balloon after a certain amount of years?
That's a good question. So, Kevin, I'm going to read into your question a little bit and say, are you talking about the deal I have in front of us where I bought a non-performing partial and I'm trying to get it to reperform with the current occupants? Then I don't like balloons. I don't really think balloons are necessary in a note. I just straight amortize it over the life of the loan. If they want to pay it off early, they pay it off early. I don't need a balloon to accelerate them to do things, because in past notes that I've seen and notes that I've created, the balloons come due and no one can pay it off. So that's just my opinion. Okay, good. He was referring to the same thing. So that I wouldn't do a balloon. You can do a balloon if you want. It is legal to do a balloon, but I just choose not to do them. Just personal preference.
Okay, I'm going to bring this one up just because it's been sitting there.
Okay.
Grace says VOH FYI. Grace, I have no idea what you're talking about.
VOH.
Maybe
I don't think I've heard that acronym, or I probably have and just don't realize what it is. But yeah, Grace, chime back in and let us know what that means.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because I'm always, as a older boomer, I'm always finding these out, and my daughter informed me that I was using an overly aggressive emoji the other day, and I thought,
which one was it?
Well, her
thumbs
claim,
up?
it was thumbs up. And she said that is a very aggressive thumbs up, which to me
Really?
was just a smiley face, but
I thought it means okay.
yeah,
Okay,
that's what
dude.
I thought. Just kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, Anyway, we digress.
All right, Grace. Let us know if happy to answer that. And guys, if you have questions just in general about note investing or real estate questions, we can save those towards the very end when we have our kind of our fireside talk at the end. We don't have to go through our broadcast, so we'll skip through our broadcast a little bit more. So, anyways, so the unpaid balance is about $33,000. This one, I forgot I put this information in there. The value is around $45,000 of the house today. Deed in lieu is going to be what we're going to call taking the property back via deed in lieu. So that means we don't go through foreclosure.
What is a deed
It's
in
not
lieu?
performing loan. You're getting the deed back from the borrower in lieu of going through foreclosure.
Why would they want to do that?
Well, in this case, the person wanted to give back the property, and so this is the way they can give back the property to me if it was a note and mortgage. This one I think is actually a land contract, and what we do is just cancel the land contract because I'm actually already on the deed. That may be over some people's heads, and we can talk about that offline or at the end of the session today. But that's what happens. So I'm going to talk with the occupants and kind of get their feedback as to what's going on and lay out some options for them.
Great.
So now you see why I didn't want to buy the entire note.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's my value? $45,000.
Value is 45.
And if I bought the entire $33,000 balance, what am I looking at? I'm looking at taking a discount on it, obviously, to pay for it, but also I'm trying to make sure my lender here also makes money. So this is a way that I found that we could both benefit from it and make some money.
Right. Good job.
Okay. All right. So that is my case study. Richard, I want to talk about more deals about focusing on risk as opposed to focusing on return, or in our industry, Richard, we say yield. You see me shifting around a lot, Richard, because I'm on my knees right now because I couldn't find a chair to sit in. I'm working remotely now in my camper, so it's a little different. So I'm moving around a little bit more.
That's all right.
All right, Rich. Hypothetical here. This beautiful home in Petaluma, California is worth $75,000. Can you believe that?
Man, I tell you, you can't
get a bathroom for $75,000.
They talk about these little small houses that are 400 square feet on wheels. You can't even buy that for $75,000. But keep going.
Funny. All right, so we're going to pretend the as-is value of this house is $75,000, and we're going to pretend, like Richard, that we're going to be lenders and we're going to lend money. We're going to do seller financing. Okay, so we own the property free and clear, and we want to do some seller financing. So if a borrower has little to none down payment, I'm not saying you should do the deal. I'm saying this is a way to take risk out of the deal for yourself. Borrower can afford to make whatever the payment is going to be. What can you do, huh? Well, I say you write 2 notes.
Tell us about that, Justin.
Let's dive a little bit further. So this is why I don't like how my PowerPoint's not showing my bullets one at a time, because you're going to be able to read ahead. Try not to read ahead. Cost basis, Richard. That means you're all in this property for $50,000. It's free and clear. You own it. There's no debt on it. $50,000, but you can resell it for $75,000. Why? Because you bought it at a good price.
Right.
Richard, let's just make it easy and say we're going to make the first lien $50,000, and we'll say it's a 6% interest rate. We're not going to go overboard. We'll make a second lien because we got to cover our $25K gap there with no down payment, or little to none. We want to cover that, and we'll say it's a $25,000 note, and it's a 10% second lien. So, Richard, we just created a first lien that's 70% loan to value.
And what's the magic of 70%?
It's a lower risk situation for that someone in the first position. So again, Richard, you have a $50,000 property that's worth $75,000. Do you feel comfortable that you can get your money back?
Yes, I do.
That's why we set it up that way. So
and probably if I wanted to sell that note to an institutional buyer, it would be worth a whole lot more at that loan value, right?
It could be. It depends on their threshold and how they buy and why they buy. But yeah, potentially we're going to focus on private investors. And we're going to say private investors would like something like this because if they bought that first lien, even if things went sideways, they got a pretty good spread in there of protection.
Right.
So again, the borrower was worthy to get the property. They show that they could afford to make the payments. They just didn't put enough scratch together to do that. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying this is a way to mitigate some of the risk involved. So you sell that first lien, Richard, and you can even sell it for a slight discount to give the future lender even more of a yield. And you could recoup darn near all of your capital back just by selling that first loan. And then what's left over?
Well, I've got a second for 25, and I'm still going to get 10% on that, which is not a bad yield. So if I look at the overall transaction, I can pull almost all my money out, go out and invest it in something else, and get a pretty handsome return overall.
So if you found another investment that was an 8, 9, or 10% return, you take that 50K, or let's just say 45 or 48K, you're reinvesting it. So you're not actually making 6% of that money, you're making a lot more.
Right.
And your remainder, your 25K that you have no cost basis in, it's not a 10% yield. It's infinite.
Right. So I'm in the process of buying a note from a fellow right now. And all of you out there can sort of take this as a model that I think works very well. He's just happens to be in Virginia. He's, I think, early 40s. He's bought and sold about 5 houses. He buys a distressed house, fixes it up himself, usually gets enough of a down payment to cover his costs and creates a mortgage out of that. He seasons the mortgage for 6 months and then sells it and does rinse and repeat. And by doing that, he's able to pull a whole bunch of money out and escape some capital gains. And it's a very, very nice deal.
I like that. How long does he hold it?
Well, he's holding it for 6 months. To actually get it out of totally capital gains, you have to hold it for more than a year. But in his instance, he said he's able to find enough houses so that he just made a pretty slick little Excel model. And he puts his numbers in and calculates his yield and sees worth it, what his holding period is and what his tax rate will be on that, and whether he should sell based on what he's going to make on the next project, or whether he should hold it for a year and then move on.
Absolutely. So this is another way to take risk out of the deal. Like I said, it's not going to be your number one option to do, but if you're stuck in a situation, you want to know how to get out of it. This is something that we've done before on smaller valued loans. This is a great option. On higher valued loans, I probably wouldn't use this type of option. I'd want to make sure someone had some down payment in there.
Right.
But this is a way, if you plan on recouping some of your money back from creating a seller finance note, creating 2 notes is not a bad idea. It's more paperwork, a little more cumbersome, but this is a way that you can generate some more protection for the next person that buys it.
Right. So one thing I might caution people on, though, is that quite often, I know you see this too, Justin. Justin and I are both separately and collectively buying a lot of private notes from individuals. We'll see a lot of instances where somebody said, "Oh, gee, you're a really good guy, so I'm only going to get $1,000 down or nothing down. Maybe I'm going to give it to you at a 2% interest rate." Well, if you do that, you're setting yourself up for a fall, because your buyer is going to say that there's very little equity in the deal and they're going to want to adjust it to market. And so there's going to be a huge discount on that note. You want to make the interest rate as high as you can, and you want to get as much of a down payment as you can.
Right. There's such thing as too high, and you need to look at your usury laws in your state, and your attorneys can help you out. But there is a general rule of thumb. Richard and I probably can slightly agree on this, but typically the lower the loan value, the higher the interest rate, and you'll slide up from there. And once you get over $100,000, you're probably not going to have a 10% interest rate. It's probably going to be, 8, 7, 6, 5, maybe even 5% once it gets up to, closer to $500,000. because if you have a 7% interest rate on an $800,000 mortgage, it's just a lot of interest, and it really affects the borrower from actually getting the principal down. So you want to be kind of fair about it.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to get that rate. I mean, out here being San Francisco, most of the non-QM, non-qualified mortgage lenders are lending at about 6%. Market rate right now is about 3% for a conventional. So, double whatever market is a pretty good. Double whatever conventional is a pretty good rule of thumb.
Okay. Doris shouted out VOA FYI. I'm not sure if that's in reference to what Grace mentioned about VOH. I'm just not getting it, Richard. I don't know what the acronym stands for.
We're being simpletons, guys. Let's see, VOA. I can pull that up, but to me, that's Voice of America.
Voice of America.
Yeah.
Help us out here. We're two just dumb note investors here. We need someone to spell this out for us so we know what you guys are saying. Speaking of what Richard said, hey, send us your deals. Take your smartphone out, hover over this QR code if you got a deal you want us to buy or want us to look at. Performing, non-performing, land contract, contract for deeds, note and mortgage, note and deeds of trust, lease options. We're looking at all that stuff as long as it's residential, and that's what we're looking for. We will look at commercial deals, but we primarily are looking at residential deals right now on single family. Looks like Lisa said, I just Googled VOA and it stands for Voice of America. Hey.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
All right.
So help us out, guys.
Yeah, maybe that is what they're saying. You know what? Preaching to the choir. Maybe that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, this brings up a good point. And maybe it's more subtle than we need to be here, but I know I get used to in my text messages and things like that, I get used to using different acronyms.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little bit careful with a lot of people when you're negotiating something because they don't understand. I've put in a number of my texts or started to put in LVFM would like to call you soon. LVFM left voicemail. Okay, but a lot of people don't necessarily know that.
Oh.
So I cut all that out. Yeah, I cut all that out, and I just say, "Hi, I left you a voicemail," and it's more work for me. But you absolutely trash your negotiations and your.
That's true.
If you do anything like that.
Yeah, it depends on who's receiving that text too, because they may understand it, or they may be from a different generation that they don't use acronyms like that, so they don't know. Like I used to put TY at the end of some of my messages for thank you, and I realized people started thinking my name was Ty.
Right.
So then I said THX for thanks.
Right.
Voice of history.
Voice of history. Well, thank you. I never would have. So we're learning from history, and we're learning from you. Right. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, Richard. So we're nearing the end of our main part of our broadcast. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more Q&A here in the after party. We just want to let you guys know that Wednesday, January 12th, so after all the holidays, about 5 weeks from now, 6 to 8 p.m., we're going to be back live on our YouTube channel here, and our Facebook page, and our Facebook group as well.
And we will be experimenting a little bit because I will be coming to you live from someplace in Thailand. I'm not quite sure where it'll be, but we'll find out. I'll be able to tell you.
So you'll have Gita out there holding the cell phone signal tower up there, so you can get a signal, so you can get on our broadcast in a month.
That's right. Gita's my other half, in case anybody's wondering. But yeah, I'll be out there, and we'll be traveling together.
Okay. Well, there's our email addresses: richard@amnotecap.com, justin@brightpathnotes.com. You can follow Brightpath Notes on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow Richard on LinkedIn as well. You can join our Facebook group, Be the Bank Real Estate Note Investing. You know it's the right group because it has that little logo that you see in the background. So January 12th is our next meeting. We're not quite done for today. We wanted to kind of end that segment quickly. We're going to go into our after party. So stay tuned with us, and we'll see you in just about 45 seconds. Hey, we are
All
back.
right. All right.
Better
Back.
than ever.
We may have exhausted everybody because they were so good at posting questions
They
during
were.
the show. Let's see what Kevin's
They were
got or
excellent.
Michael's got here. Let's see.
All right.
Back
What
to
you
the
got,
loan
Michael?
default question. What percentage of home sales are cash buyers versus mortgage buyers?
38.73%.
Did
I'm
you
just
just pull
kidding.
that out of the hat?
I have no idea. I have no idea. That's a great question. We'll have to look that up and figure out that data. I've not seen that data.
I'm looking it
That's a
up
great
right now. I
question.
can tell you.
If you're talking about, well, let's talk about that for a second. So if we're saying all loans across the country, which are cash buyers versus mortgage buyers, or we're talking about investment properties, I guess we can dissect it into two different groups if we wanted to as well. But I would say, far more mortgage buyers than there are cash buyers on home sales. But I have no idea what the percentage would be. If I had to guess, I might say like 15-20% cash buyers. Am I wrong?
Well, guess what, Justin? I just
What?
pulled it up, and as of July of this year, the percentage was 21%. You win the bell. Ding.
Wow.
How about that?
20%, Bob.
21% are cash buyers.
Huh. Great question. Any questions you guys got like that? This is a great time for you to bring them up. Use the comment
So I
section.
mean that is, which is very interesting. There's a whole lot of dynamics at play in. I mean, there's the stock market stuff that we talked about earlier, but for instance, the fellow that I was referring to that's buying and flipping, he's using his VA financing, and as you know, he can get away with putting down 3% and get a heck of a good rate, and he just keeps rolling that puppy. And so he's somebody that would skew the mortgage buying ranks because he'll probably buy 4 houses this year, and he just bumps and flips. And he said he's making, by buying his distressed, he's making $80,000 to $100,000 per, and he's doing his part time. Which, if you live in the right area, you got to really wonder and say, maybe this is something I should be doing.
Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, those VA loans, you definitely can get away with putting down less money. So let's talk about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that we've always noticed, Richard, is that the FHA and basically the FHA loan, the government type of loans like that,
mm-hmm.
those are typically the weaker borrowers or first time borrowers. They haven't established a good credit history.
Right.
And so those loans are obviously going to be lower down payment as well for them to get into the deal. And at some point, I think they used to do over 100% lending on some stuff for like first time to get some special credits or whatever.
You could do 102%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the VA loans, how they can put down 3%. But if you remember a lot of our charts through 2021, we saw the FHA in a more riskier category than the VA. The VA wasn't far behind it, but even though it was a lower down payment, they still had a better borrower base than a FHA type of loan.
Mm-hmm. So what are you saying?
Military discipline.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to draw out of you. I mean, it's very interesting to me that that's a way a lot of people read that, and I say that that is largely accurate. You've got disciplined people coming out of the military, and it as opposed to somebody who just on a flyer just barely qualified for an FHA loan. Not that that's bad. If you can do that, folks, that's great. But yeah. So Lisa says,
That's me. Are you a VA or a FHA buyer?
Yeah, tell us, Lisa, and tell us what your experience might be and how you're using it.
Well, I'll tell you, I was definitely an FHA buyer, and I loved it for my first house. I think I want to say I only had to put down, it wasn't even percentage, Richard. It was just a cash set amount. I want to say it was like $2,500 on a house. Let's call the house $160,000.
Right.
It was great. Yeah. But what I didn't like about it is that you had to get private mortgage insurance.
Right. So let's see. Kevin here says, how would you capitalize on a VA or FHA loan?
How would you capitalize on a VA or FHA loan? Meaning, if we were to invest in one, how would we make money?
Well,
Maybe I'm reading into the question too much.
While Kevin is maybe typing in an answer to that, what I would say is one way you can capitalize on that, Kevin, is just what I mentioned this other fellow's doing. He has the right as a veteran to get those same terms over and over and over again. And so he can roll in and out of these loans pretty quickly, never put more than 3% in his deals. And he puts in anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 renovations, and is, as I mentioned, is usually clipping 80 to 100,000. You can't do that conventionally. And so that is such a wonderful benefit if you really want to use it.
Absolutely.
Let's see what Lisa says. She says, I'm a realtor looking to become an investor. Great, Lisa.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. You're in the right place.
You're in the right place.
And Cyree is a great group. It looks like she just joined. So I'm happy to see that you joined Cyree, our local club here. And thanks for being a part of our group as well. And keep the questions coming.
Yeah. And so Lisa says, just joined and looking to learn, saw this broadcast and thought that I would like to listen. This note stuff is all new to me, but I see investors making bank and want to be part of it. I agree.
Be the bank.
It's not as easy as it looks, maybe, but it's fun. And obviously Justin and I both like it. Lisa, yeah. I would urge you to reach out to both Justin and me. I know I've got stuff on my website, American Note Capital, if you want to go to YouTube. And you can see whole videos there about how you underwrite notes, things like that. It's all for free. Justin's got some stuff that I'm sure he can send you. And we're always happy to help people out.
Yeah, and don't forget we have a training course as well. If you want to spend a little bit of money, a few $100, and you can get about 25, 30 videos with some case studies as well that we have we have called Constant Cash Flow.
That's even better.
If you go to my website, brightpathnotes.com, you'll see Constant Cash Flow as one of the tabs. You go there if you want. But like I said, check out the free stuff as well on his American Note Capital YouTube channel and Bright Path Notes YouTube channel. We got a lot of free stuff on there as well. So check that stuff out.
Shame on me for not mentioning our own course. But
all right, Richard, we're losing you a little bit. Your audio cut out a little bit. I'm going to repeat that in case anyone didn't hear it. But Kevin got up a new question. And back to what Kevin said, he said yes when he was asking the question about how do you recapitalize on a VA or VHA loan. I don't think we answered that question, Richard, on investing in it. So those types of loans, I've not invested in any of those types of loans. I'm primarily in the seller finance industry. But if those loans came along, they typically are going to be at a better coupon rate because they're going to be a lower interest rate and they're going to be a little bit higher valued loans, let's say north of $100,000. And so those loans are really good to do partials on because you can, there's a lot of, I want to say, Richard, I don't want to say equity. I want to say a lot of spread in those loans. And so those are great loans to do partials on. And we can have a more in-depth discussion with that, but a little bit too advanced for our call right now. So have you guys ever brokered notes? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the hedge fund model is you buy in bulk and sell by the can, or if you're not able to buy it with the capital you have in front of you today, you figure out who does have the money and you sell it to them, and you make a little bit of arbitrage in between. That's the model for the single investor and the model for the hedge fund.
Right. Justin loses money on most of his deals, but we won't.
I do. That's why I buy non-performing partials. I'm like, why the heck would you do that? That doesn't make any sense at all. Why would you buy a non-performing partial?
That's right.
We'll see. Maybe I'll make money. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
All right. I think that's all the questions we have for the moment. Anything that we need to add while we're here?
Lisa, just wanted to say thanks for starting this journey. She'll be following. That's awesome. We appreciate it. Yeah, look forward to having you as a note investor, hopefully in the future, if that's what you choose to do. Being the bank is awesome. I started off wholesaling. I started off with rentals and fix and flipping, and boy, did I do everything wrong with that stuff and then some. So I landed in notes, and that's where I'm staying because it just makes sense to me. I really like it a lot. Michael says, thanks. Appreciate Michael jumping on, asking a lot of questions. Thanks to all you guys asking a bunch of questions today. If you have anything else you can think of, put in the comment section right now. Richard and I will be on for a few more minutes if you guys want to.
Yeah, keep in mind that when Justin was doing his rentals, he had hair. And look at him now.
Did.
Really.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting it back now that I'm in notes.
Yeah, that's right.
The dome is getting
it's called
darker.
Creep, forward creep.
Yeah, it's like a chia pet. I spread that little stuff on there and start growing.
It works for me. Green is in.
Yeah, it's seed money in there for my notes.
Okay, very good. Anything else, guys?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right. Thanks very much.
All right. We'll be signing off, guys. See you next time.
Bye.